I once read, perhaps as a commentary on Tumblr, perhaps in an article, I forget, that the queer lady's fascination with historical woman-love-woman films comes from the idea that it allows us to be seen in a time period where we were invisible. It shows us that yes, we have always existed, giving us that sense that though it often has been hidden, we do have a history that extends beyond the last few decades when it became more possible to be visible. And we have been here all along, as seen by this list of real-life queer women who did things worthy of becoming a film. Be sure to comment with your favourite woman-love-woman films based on real life below. Anne Lister, an Englishwoman of means in the early 1800s, bucked all expectations at the time to become a businesswoman in coal mining. Through her detailed diary keeping, we not only get to see into her business dealings and her family life, but the coded passages revealed her sapphism in frank detail. While Gentleman Jack popularised this historical figure, the less well-known movie The Secret Diaries of Anne Lister was made a decade earlier, starting at an earlier point in her life. It follows her attempts and the heartbreak in trying to find someone to love in her earlier years until her eventual relationship with Anne Walker. While I do feel Gentleman Jack is a better and more enjoyable watch, this adaptation provides a more sweeping look at Anne Lister's life, and based off what I remember reading of Anne Lister's abridged diary some 10 years ago, it is a faithful rendering of what happened in her life. Not nearly as faithful is Wild Nights with Emily, an Emily Dickinson film adaptation which, unlike A Quiet Passion, another movie on the poet, was, as the title suggests, pretty wild. Like the TV show Dickinson, it leans into the queerness and into that certain irreverent comedic tone, enough that I do wonder if Dickinson was in fact inspired by this film. It looks at Emily's attempts to get published as well as her love affair with Muse and sister-in-law Sue. Again, this film takes on a more sweeping look at Emily's life than the TV show, starting in her teens and going past her death, to show how the truth of Emily's love for Sue was a calculated erasure due to the controversial nature of her queerness. In all honesty, I again prefer Dickinson to the movie, but it's still a fun romp, and like the TV show, I imagine that while some key points are accurate to Emily's life, there is plenty of artistic license taken. Which by all accounts is the same for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, based on the play of the same name that itself took liberties when it came to factual accuracy. What is true is that Ma Rainey, played by Viola Davis, was credited as being the mother of blues and an early recording artist of huge influence. She was also queer, something that is only lightly touched on in the movie, but was nonetheless present. The movie focuses rather on a particular day in 1927 when she and her band are in the recording studio to put down some tracks for white producers who hope to bring the blues to a white audience and in the process make themselves a lot of money, which Ma Rainey is all too aware of, and this causes tension. The way the film is shot with long takes and dialogue-heavy scenes harkens back to its stage play origins, which may not be to everyone's tastes but earned the film critical acclaim. Ma Rainey incidentally made an appearance in the biopic Bessie, starring Queen Latifah, some 5 years earlier. The story follows Bessie Smith, a famous blues singer who was hugely influential in the 1920s and 30s and was a known bisexual. Takes liberties with how she ends up performing alongside Ma Rainey to then branching out on her own. We follow her through the rise, the fall and rise again of her fame, dealing with colorism which sees her losing a record deal in favour of lighter-skinned performers and racist labels that seek to exploit her success, a failed marriage, and, mostly, her drive to create something for herself, having come from a poor background. Before Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson first rose to acclaim with the movie that gave Kate Winslet and Melanie Lynskey their start. Heavenly Creatures is a biographical psychological drama about a 1954 murder in New Zealand. It follows the developing bond between Pauline and Juliet, who develop an obsessive relationship with each other and a make-believe world they create together. As their relationship grows, their fantasy world becomes more and more real to them, with them acting out increasingly violent scenarios. The parents, concerned at the intensity of the girls' relationship, make plans to take Juliet away, which sends the girls into a spiral, one which leads them to the conclusion that Pauline's mother is the key to the problem, and it's a problem that must be solved. This is the first queer movie I have memory of seeing. As the only representation available to me at the time, I remember having conflicting feelings of seeing the girls growing close, which I found intriguing, but having it framed in such an unsavory way which felt repulsive. Let's just say that this movie did not help me accept my burgeoning sexuality. I haven't seen it again since then, but I'm sure it's a good film. Where the movie The Hours lightly touched on Virginia Woolf's queerness, Vita and Virginia leans fully into it, looking into the writer's most significant lesbian relationship with aristocrat and writer Vita Sackville West, played by Gemma Arterton of Summerland, in the 1920s. The movie is based on the 1992 play where Vita, captured by Virginia's writing, is determined to get to know her. Although they are both married, a bond grows between them that leads to a relationship that ebbed and flowed through to Virginia's suicide in 1941. Significantly, it birthed the successful novel Orlando, where the titular character is based on Vita and had been described as the longest and most charming love letter in literature. While the movie tries to capture the dynamic and passionate affair, I don't feel it managed to do it proper justice. But you know, it's a gay film, and how many bad gay films have I watched? A lot, and this is by no means the worst. We have another queer author to add to the list, namely Sidonie Gabrielle Colette, who was known just as Colette and played by Keira Knightley. She wrote a series of books called Claudine, which her husband published under his own name, and it wasn't until later that she was recognised as having been involved and eventually as the actual writer of the series. The stealing of her work and the fact that she was the talent within the couple caused tensions between them, which was only heightened by her husband's infidelities. So when Colette begins an affair with a woman, perhaps as a retaliation, her husband seduces the woman too out of jealousy. Colette's most notable queer relationship, however, is with Missy, who was likely trans or at least gender non-conforming. Together they embarked on the music halls and the path to Colette emerging from her husband's shadow. I think the highlight was for me seeing Keira Knightley tackle a queer character so many years after Bend It Like Beckham, and I know that there are a number of you out there who had a gay awakening watching her in that film or The Pirates of Caribbean, and I'm delighted for you. A couple more movies based on real-life lesbians that I have already reviewed on my top 20 lesbian and woman love women are Freeheld and Elena Undone, as well as Amy and Jaguar, which was on my popular lesbian and woman love women's video. There are more films based on real-life events and people, but that will have to be for another video. Until next time, lady lovers.